Tonight, let us slow down and listen together to a story from long ago. A story about a woman named Hagar and her son Ishmael. It is a quiet story, filled with moments of feeling alone, and the gentle care that can be found even then. In those days, many years after the great promises God made to Abraham, Hagar was a servant in Abraham's household. She was the servant of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Sarah had waited many years to have a child of her own. Long ago, because of their old age and the time past, she gave Hagar to Abraham to be a mother to a child in her place. And from this, Hagar bore a son. His name was Ishmael. As Ishmael grew up, small and lively, the home was filled with the sounds of his laughter and play. But over time, the story takes a quiet turn. Sarah, who had long hoped for a child of her own, was blessed with her own son, Isaac. The joy of Isaac's birth brought much happiness to the family. Yet as Isaac grew, the relationship in the household also changed. Sarah saw her son growing, strong and healthy, and she felt something that made her speak to Abraham. She saw Ishmael sometimes acting in ways that worried her. Sarah asked Abraham to send Hagar and her son away, so that Isaac could be alone as the heir. Abraham's heart was heavy. He loved Ishmael his son, and Hagar his wife's servant. But Sarah's request was deep and earnest. Abraham wanted to do what was right and pleasing, so he spoke gently to Sarah and listened to God's guidance. One day, Abraham said to Hagar, "You must go away with your son, but God will take care of you." It must have been very hard to hear those words, soft as they were. Hagar gathered what she could carry, with her young son Ishmael by her side. They left the home where they had lived for many years. The sun was warm as they walked through the wilderness. The land was dry, and the journey was long. A mother and her son, stepping softly across a dusty path, with nothing but the sky above and the earth beneath. Hagar's heart was heavy with worry, but she held her son close, whispering comfort to him. They walked until the water she brought was gone, and the heat pressed down. Ishmael grew weak and thirsty. Hagar did not know where to turn or what to do next. She sat down beside her son, so tired and afraid. The quiet was deep, save for the soft wind through the sparse bushes. But then, something gentle happened. Hagar's eyes lifted, and the sound of a gentle voice came into the stillness. It was an angel, a messenger sent to care for her. The angel spoke softly, saying, "Do not be afraid, for God has heard the cries of the boy. Lift him up and hold him close." The angel showed Hagar a small spring of water nearby, a hidden well where both she and Ishmael could drink and find strength. The water, cool and clear, was a tender gift in the wilderness. Hagar stayed that place near the spring, caring for Ishmael as he grew stronger. The angel's words were a promise, though we do not always see the whole picture. The boy would grow to be strong and live in the desert, away from his father's home, but safe under God's watchful care. Each day, as the sun rose and settled in the sky, Hagar and Ishmael lived quietly. Ishmael grew, learning to live in the wilderness, calm and steady, his mother beside him. The desert around was wide and still, the stars above bright and countless. Though the story feels lonely at times, it carries a softness too, a mother's love, a child's trust, and the promise that even in uncertain places, care and watchfulness can be found. The days quietly passed, painting a picture of survival, of gentle protection, and of the long path ahead, a path we will listen to together, slowly and calmly, on our next quiet time. For now, let us rest with this soft story, holding the kindness between Hagar and Ishmael close, as the night carries us gently forward. Days passed in the quiet rhythm of the desert. Hagar and Ishmael settled by the spring's gentle waters, the soft trickle forming a soothing soundtrack to their days. The hot sun moved steadily across the sky, painting the sands with delicate golds and long shadows. Hagar learned to read the subtle signs of nature, watching the flight of birds and listening to the whisper of the wind. It was a world both harsh and full of quiet miracles, a place where survival demanded patience and gentle attentiveness. Ishmael, freed from the confines of the household he once knew, became a child of the wilderness. He explored near the spring, gathering small stones and chasing after lizards that scurried across sun-warmed rocks. His laughter, carried by the breeze, mingled with the calls of distant animals, weaving a melody of life. Hagar, despite her worries and nights of sleepless care, found moments of peace. She sang soft lullabies to Ishmael, melodies born from the heart. Old songs remembered from childhood, now weaving new stories beneath the vast, endless sky. In the coolness of evening, when stars began to twinkle with shy brilliance, mother and child would sit by the water's edge. Hagar would tell Ishmael stories about his father, Abraham, and about Sarah, her kindness and fears both known and unknown. These stories, told with gentle honesty, planted seeds of understanding and love in the boy's growing heart. The desert, vast and sometimes lonely, became their home. It was a place where the wind seemed to speak in hushed tones, comforting rather than frightening. Hagar often felt a quiet presence around them, a sense that they were watched over and not forgotten. The angel's promise lingered like a soft veil of light, wrapping them in hope. Ishmael grew stronger with each passing day. His legs, once thin and frail, now carried him swiftly through the sand. His curious eyes brightened with wonder at every new discovery. Hagar noticed the strength of his spirit and the kind heart that guided his actions, traits that she cherished and nurtured with every gentle word and touch. As time unfolded, small plants began to take root near the spring's edge. Tender shoots pushed through the sand, promising life even in the driest of places. Hagar tended to them carefully, as if they were tiny miracles, each leaf a delicate blessing. Watching these moments of growth was a quiet joy that lifted their spirits. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with stripes of pink and orange, Hagar looked at Ishmael and saw not just her child, but a young soul filled with promise. The hardships had carved lines of resolve on her own face, but within her chest, her heart beat a steady rhythm of hope. She thought of Abraham, his sorrow mingled with faith, and of Sarah, whose laughter once filled their tent. Though apart, the threads of their lives remained connected in unseen ways. Hagar whispered a prayer, a wish for peace and protection, for all who walked difficult paths. Ishmael, feeling the quiet power in his mother's voice, nestled closer. Their bond, forged in trials and softened by love, was a shelter against any storm. The night deepened around them, filled with the gentle chorus of crickets and the steady breath of the earth. The days grew into months. Ishmael learned the ways of the desert, how to find shade beneath the acacia, where to gather edible roots, how to follow the tracks of wild animals without fear. Hagar watched with pride as her boy grew not just in body, but in wisdom and kindness. Travelers passing near their spring would sometimes pause, surprised to find life thriving in such a barren place. Hagar welcomed them with gentle hospitality, sharing water and stories. Her voice, calm and steady, carried the warmth of a home, far from any city walls. Though the path they walked was steep and full of challenge, mother and son faced it together, each step marked by quiet courage. The world around them whispered ancient truths, that even in solitude, there is connection, and even in hardship, there is grace. One morning, under a sky washed clean by rain, Hagar stood and looked toward the horizon. The wind carried scents of distant lands, and the stillness held a promise of change. She knew their journey was not yet complete. There were roads ahead, stories yet to be told, and a future bright with possibility. With steady hands, she packed their modest belongings. Ishmael's face shone with the eager light of new adventures, his trust unwavering. Hagar smiled softly, a mother's smile full of strength and quiet joy. Together they stepped forward from the spring, leaving footprints in the sand that the desert wind would softly erase. Yet their story, carried in heartbeats and whispers, would endure. The sun rose higher, casting a golden path before them. The vast desert stretched out, vast and full of mystery, but Hagar and Ishmael walked it with calm hearts and hopeful spirits. Their story was a gentle song of love and resilience, a reminder that even in the most barren places, life blooms bright and strong. And as they journeyed on, the presence of gentle care and watchful protection remained their faithful companion, lighting the way. The desert stretched out before them beneath a sky brushed with gentle hues of dawn. The pale light touched the sands and rocks, making them shimmer softly, as if the earth itself were breathing in a new day. Hagar walked steadily, the weight of her small bundle balanced carefully on her shoulder. Ishmael's feet padded beside her, light and sure, moving with the grace of one who had learned the pulse of the desert winds. The air held a crispness that promised change, a delicate stirring in the stillness. Hagar could feel it too, beneath her steady steps, beneath the soft shuffle of Ishmael's pace. It was as if the desert itself was willing them forward, urging them toward a future that waited just beyond the horizon. Though the land was vast and often lonely, it was never truly silent. There was a quiet song in the distance, carried by the wind, a lullaby of hope, a melody of survival. As they walked, Hagar gathered wild herbs and tender shoots that peeked from hidden nooks, offering nourishment for the journey ahead. Ishmael's bright eyes watched her, filled with quiet admiration. He had already learned so much: how to find the water's secret hiding places, how to read the wisdom in the stars, how to move softly like the breeze so as not to disturb the creatures, small and great, that shared their desert home. Hagar paused for a moment, letting the sun warm her face. She looked at her son, sensing the strength growing within him, strength that was not just of muscle, but of spirit. In him she saw the promise of tomorrow, a future shaped by resilience and kindness. Ishmael's heart beat steady beside hers, a reassuring rhythm that they were together, united, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They came to a rise where the desert unfurled in sweeping dunes, a tapestry of light and shadow, ancient and unchanging. Hagar pointed to a distant cluster of palms, their fronds waving gently in the morning breeze, a beacon of shelter and life. Ishmael's small hand slipped into hers, and for a moment the world felt filled with quiet possibility. Night came softly, draping the desert in a blanket of deep blue velvet, studded with stars that glimmered like fireflies in a gentle jar. By their modest campfire, Hagar whispered stories of old, tales of courage and kindness handed down through generations. She spoke of Abraham and Sarah, of a time when the world was young and full of wonder. Ishmael listened intently, feeling the warmth of those words settle deep within him. The crackle of the fire was a steady companion, a song to soothe the soul against the vastness of the night. Hagar's voice was soft as she shared the hope that lived in those stories, the hope that even in the harshest places, life could blossom and hearts could remain gentle. Ishmael's eyes grew heavy, his spirit comforted by his mother's presence and the promise of a tomorrow waiting to unfold. The silence that followed held a sacred peace, broken only by the distant call of a lone night bird and the gentle rustle of sand, stirred by a soft breeze. In those quiet moments, the desert felt less formidable, as if cradling them within its timeless embrace. Morning light spilled over the horizon again, painting the world with soft golden strokes. Hagar rose, stretching her tired limbs, and felt a surge of quiet determination. Today would bring new steps on their journey, new lessons, new moments to cherish. Ishmael awoke refreshed, his youthful curiosity ready to greet another day in this land that could be both harsh and beautiful. Together they moved with purpose, their footprints weaving a path across the sand, a story written one step at a time. The desert, vast though it was, no longer seemed a place of loneliness but of connection to the earth beneath, the sky above, and the enduring love between mother and son. They passed through valleys where the wind whispered through rocky walls, and over hills where the sun's embrace was warm and gentle. Each moment became a thread in the fabric of their shared journey, a testament to endurance laced with hope. Sometimes travelers crossed their path, caravans laden with goods, faces lined with the stories of distant places. Hagar greeted them with quiet grace, sharing water, a smile, a moment of rest. Through these brief encounters she wove a tapestry of kindness that spread like a soft breeze across the desert. Ishmael watched closely, learning the art of hospitality and the strength found in simple acts of goodwill. These exchanges nurtured their spirits, reminding them that even in vastness, none were truly alone. When night fell again, they rested beneath an ancient tree whose roots drank deeply from hidden waters. The tree's branches offered shelter, a quiet sanctuary where dreams could dance freely. As Hagar sat beside Ishmael, she traced gentle patterns in the sand, her fingers weaving stories of promise and peace. The desert's stillness surrounded them, a gentle hum of life in the quiet dark. She whispered a prayer, a hope for safety, for kindness to bloom in every heart that wandered through this land. Ishmael nestled close, feeling the comfort of his mother's presence like a soft shawl against the cool night air. Together, they gazed upward at the stars, silent witnesses to their journey, eternal lights that watched over every step, every breath. Days and nights flowed gently by. The desert revealed its secrets little by little. Hagar taught Ishmael to listen, to the rustle of a distant animal, the whisper of hidden water, the language of the wind. With each lesson, Ishmael's confidence grew, his spirit sharpening with kindness and courage. And in the quiet moments, when the sun was warm and the world seemed slow, they created small spaces of joy, a shared laugh, a soft song, a moment of stillness filled with gratitude. One day, as they paused beside a rocky outcrop, Ishmael noticed a small flower blooming defiantly among the stones. Its delicate petals stretched toward the sun, a tiny burst of color in the vast earth. Hagar smiled, her heart touched by the flower's quiet bravery. "Even here," she said softly, "life finds a way to shine." Ishmael reached out, touching the petals gently. "Just like us," he said, his voice steady, full of quiet hope. Together they sat in the warmth, surrounded by the broad desert that had become both teacher and home. Their journey was far from over, but in their hearts a new chapter was beginning, one written in the language of endurance, love, and endless possibility. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows that danced across the sand, Hagar and Ishmael rose once more. Hand in hand, they stepped lightly into the gathering twilight, their path lit softly by the fading glow, a promise that, no matter where the desert led them, they would move forward together, guided by a bond that stretched beyond time and place. And beneath the vast, endless sky, the desert whispered its ancient blessing, a song of strength, of hope, and of a love that would carry them always. The night wrapped around them like a soft shawl, cool and vast, filled with the gentle murmur of the stars. Hagar and Ishmael paused for a moment, sitting side by side on the warm sand. Above, the sky shimmered with countless points of light, each one a silent witness to their journey. Ishmael's breath was steady, the rhythm of the desert night sinking deep into his bones. Together they listened to the quiet, the subtle music of wind brushing past dune and stone. Hagar tilted her head back and looked up at the heavens. "The stars," she whispered, "have been guiding travelers for centuries. They never grow weary, and they remind us to keep going, no matter how far the path seems." Ishmael watched her face, his eyes reflecting the soft starlight. In this moment, the vastness of the desert did not feel lonely. It was filled with presence, the enduring heartbeat of nature and their own steady steps upon the land. When the first light of dawn approached, the desert took on a gentle glow, less fierce than the sun at its peak. Hagar rose with grace, brushing the sand from her robe, and offered her hand to Ishmael. "There is something peaceful about morning," she said. "It invites us to begin again, to renew our courage." Ishmael stood and looked out at the horizon, where the sun's edge painted the sky in strokes of rose and gold. Each grain of sand seemed to hold a whisper of promise, as if the desert itself was encouraging them forward. The day's journey would take them over rocky ridges and through folds of dry creek beds, each step a pulse in their tale. As they walked, the sound of their footsteps was joined by a soft jangling, the gentle clink of a small water jug tied to their supplies. The weight of their belongings was light, yet every piece held meaning, their memories, their sustenance, their hope. Hagar glanced at Ishmael and gave a small smile. "Together," she said, "we carry everything we need." Midday sun was a steady presence, reaching deep into the earth and painting their shadows long and thin. The desert's heat pressed against them, but the two moved with patience, shaded now and then by sparse clusters of acacia trees. Under their boughs the air cooled slightly, and birds called softly, reminders of life's resilience. At a bend in the trail, they encountered a man with a kind face, his clothes dusty from travel. He greeted them with a nod and shared some fresh dates from his bundle, a gesture of hospitality that touched both mother and son. Ishmael's smile grew wide, and he learned again that even in a land so vast and harsh, kindness could be found in unexpected places. "That is the heart of the desert," Hagar told him quietly as they resumed their steps. "Generosity and warmth, given freely, as important as water itself." The afternoon deepened with shifting light and lengthening shadows, stones catching iridescent hues as the sun began its slow descent. They climbed once more, reaching a smooth crest where the wind sang low and sweet. Ishmael stopped and spread his arms, catching the air like a bird testing new wings. "Can you feel it?" Hagar asked softly. "The desert breathes with you. It invites you to be brave." He nodded, eyes brightened by the breeze. There was a lesson whispered here, one of courage blossoming quietly inside, the kind that does not rush, but grows steady beneath the heart. As twilight approached, the horizon seemed to hold its breath, hues of lavender and amber shifting gently. They found their way to a wide place in the sand, where the earth seemed to catch the lingering warmth of the sun. Here they laid their simple bedding, their steps finally slowing in the fading light. Hagar looked at Ishmael and took his hand once more. Their journey had taught them many things: the harshness and grace of the desert, the language of winds and stars, the power of kindness, and their own growing strength. They held that knowledge like a lantern, lighting their way through shadows. "Tomorrow," Hagar whispered, "we will rise and move again. But tonight we rest. We let the quiet speak to us, and the stars remind us we are never truly alone." Ishmael smiled, eyes heavy but peaceful. "I feel it, Mother. The desert is part of us now." "Yes," she replied, voice smooth as the sand beneath them, "and we are part of its endless story." Under the infinite sky they lay close, hearts beating in calm rhythm. The desert's silence sang them lullabies, carrying them gently into dreams filled with hope, courage, and the promise of the road ahead. The night deepened, holding the desert in a soft embrace. Hagar and Ishmael lay close, their bodies warmed by the lingering heat of the sand. Above them, the stars glittered like scattered seeds of light, countless and quiet. In this vast sky, the smallness of the world crept in, and yet there was something reassuring about the endless stretch, a reminder of continuity, a promise of mornings yet to come. Hagar's fingers brushed Ishmael's hair, gentle as the whispering wind. She spoke softly, not to disturb the stillness, but to anchor a thought in the cool night. "The desert, my son, is both a challenge and a friend. It may seem harsh, but it has its own heart, and its heart beats alongside ours." Ishmael smiled, eyes half closed. "I feel it now, Mother. The desert's breath, it is part of me, just as I am part of it." The hush of night wrapped around them like a fragile cloak, and even as their breaths slowed and deepened, the world stirred quietly. The cactus flowers, hidden by the day's heat, began to release their sweet secret scent. Somewhere nearby, a distant jackal's call cut through the stillness, neither cruel nor frightening, just a note in the desert's lullaby. When dawn teased the horizon, colors bled soft and unhurried across the sky. Hagar rose first, steady and sure. She moved with intent that was as natural as the translating light. Ishmael, waking to the call of the new day, saw the desert glow anew, not empty or harsh, but full of possibilities written in grains of sand and the gentle rustle of dry leaves. They ate a modest breakfast, a handful of dates the traveler had given, smooth and sweet against the morning chill. Water was precious. They drank slowly, savoring each cool drop, careful not to waste the small supply they carried. Hagar checked the leather waterskin, gently patting it as if to coax more refreshment from its depths. The landscape beckoned with shifting dunes, their crests etched sharply against the morning sun. Dust rose thin, swirling over smooth sand and jagged rocks. A sand hare darted across the path, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. Every detail whispered stories, lessons written in resilience. Hagar steadied Ishmael's small hand. "Look closely. The desert teaches patience and strength. Like the hare, we move fast when we must, but also know when to wait and blend in." Ishmael nodded, the words settling into his heart. He scanned the distant horizon where a solitary palm clustered against the unbroken sand. It was a sign, not just of life, but of refuge. Their journey continued beneath a sun rising higher, its warmth growing insistent. The wind, once cool, now danced in persistent gusts, lifting loose grains in soft spirals. Hagar pulled her scarf closer, while Ishmael shielded his eyes, his mind weaving around the lessons they'd absorbed so far. A familiar shape emerged ahead, the silhouette of a narrow valley ringed with low shrubs. It promised shelter from the glaring midday sun, and a chance to rest beneath the few trees that clung stubbornly to life. They stepped quietly, mindful of the invisible ground beneath, where lizards might hunt or snakes could lie hidden. In the shade, the air cooled perceptibly. The branches of acacia trees stretched wide, their feathery leaves shimmering faint silver in the light. Tiny orbs of fruit hung low, promising nourishment not just for passing travelers but for the desert's secret creatures. Hagar knelt, brushing the sand with her fingers. Each step is a story, every leaf a lesson. The desert may seem silent, but it speaks to those who listen. Ishmael crouched beside her, eyes bright. Like the traveler who gave us dates, he listened to the desert too. Yes, Hagar smiled. He was a friend passing through, touched by kindness. We carry that forward. They rested a while, sharing the last of their water, eating slowly, gathering strength. Ishmael traced patterns in the sand, tracing shapes that shifted as the breeze shaped and erased them. Hagar watched the sky's slow evolution from blue to gold, then back again, feeling the rhythm of this world as something internal. As the sun began to tilt westward, cooling sands beneath became inviting. They prepared to move again, packing memories, hope, and the fragile strength of survival. The land stretched endlessly. Hills rose and dipped like gentle waves frozen in time, shadows stretching longer. Ishmael looked up to his mother, noticing her steady pace despite the sun's fading warmth. "The twilight makes the desert softer," he said, breath catching on the word. "Softness and strength, both can live in the same place," Hagar answered. Ahead, a ridge appeared, faint and welcoming. They climbed, the sand warm beneath bare feet, muscles firming with the effort. From this high point, the desert opened, land, sky, and all the space in between. Ishmael breathed deeply. The air held a scent of earth and stories, of old winds and quiet hopes. His heart expanded with the vastness, feeling small but brave. The night came again without hurry, bringing cool and a blanket of stars. Beneath a lone tree, Hagar and Ishmael made their camp. The quiet was a presence, neither heavy nor empty, but alive with meaning. Hagar whispered, "We are part of this desert, and it is part of us. Wherever we go, that connection carries." Ishmael curled closer, comforted by the words and the closeness. "That connection is stronger than fear or loneliness," he said softly. "Stronger than anything," Hagar repeated. The desert's pulse beat steady through the night, a rhythm unbroken, and so they slept, wrapped in the embrace of the land that held their journey, sheltered by the sky that watched over them always. At dawn, the desert breathed a quiet welcome, soft hues brushing the horizon like a whisper. Hagar stirred gently, the coolness of the night's retreat still lingering on her skin. Beside her, Ishmael blinked awake, stretching his small arms towards the waking light. The tree's shadow lengthened behind them, protective until the sun climbed higher. They rose with the sun's slow unfurling. Hagar gathered what remained of their meager supplies, the shared water skin now nearly empty, the dried dates gently cracked at their edges, but still offering quiet sweetness. Ishmael's eyes, bright with new light, followed the shifting sand. The desert was awakening, and so were they. Walking down from their ridge, Hagar's footsteps were soft and steady, each step spoken with intention, careful not to waste strength or hope. The land before them held vastness, stretching beyond sight with sand, rock, and distant shimmering heat. Yet within that expanse, Hagar carried the strength of memory, the echoes of Abraham's faith, the resilience sewn into her own spirit. The sun climbed gradually, gilding the dunes with gold and molten amber. Hagar shaded her eyes and shielded Ishmael beneath the loosened folds of her garment. Water was a precious thread weaving through their moments. They paused beneath a rock overhang, a natural alcove carved by time and wind. Here the earth held coolness. The shelter felt like a quiet sanctuary, a brief pause in the march of the day. Ishmael knelt beside a small cluster of wild desert plants, their leaves tough and sparse. Hagar smiled quietly to herself. "See how they reach for life, even when the world around seems harsh," she said softly. Ishmael nodded thoughtfully. "They wait for rain," he said. "They don't rush." "Exactly." Hagar's voice was a gentle murmur, an echo of the lessons the desert whispered. "Life in the desert is not hurried, little one. It is patient." The sky spread vast and clear overhead, its immense blue a promise and a mystery. Hagar's gaze swept outward, learning new maps in the wind-blown dust, searching again for signs, perhaps a distant sprig of promise, even a faint trace of human kindness. From their shaded nook, the desert stretched around them, ancient and wise. Hagar took Ishmael's hand in hers. The boy's fingers were small but firm, warm in hers. "Today," she said, "we find our way forward, not hurried but steady. We walk with the desert as our guide." The path led them across a ridge, where stones glittered like hidden treasures. Hagar lifted Ishmael over rocky patches, his laughter a soft sound carried by the wind. Even the desert smiled quietly within that laughter. A sand sparrow flitted past, its wing beats like small heartbeats against the vast stillness. As the sun climbed higher still, the desert seemed to soften. The heat radiated off the ground, painting waves in the air. Hagar found her breath measured and slow. Ishmael settled close, his head resting against her side. The bond between mother and son deepened with each step, forged in the silence and the sun. Near a gentle rise, they discovered a small spring hidden beneath a tangle of tamarisk bushes. The water was clear and cool, a well of grace in the dry land. Hagar knelt and cupped the fresh liquid in her hands, offering it to Ishmael, who drank eagerly. Renewed, they rested for a while, beneath the tangled branches. The tamarisk's soft leaves whispered with the faintest breeze. Hagar felt something in her chest, a warming spark of hope. The desert spoke again in quiet signs. This life must be met with courage and trust, not fear. See, Ishmael, she said, even here life finds a way. Even amidst hardship, there is kindness. Ishmael smiled, his mouth smeared with traces of water. Like the traveler, he said, who gave us dates. Yes, she murmured, and like this spring, we do not walk alone. The journey resumes slowly, the earth beneath their feet shifting with gentle persistence. Sometimes a breeze would touch their faces, carrying the scent of distant blossoms, or the dry musk of stone. Hagar lifted her head often, watching for moving shadows, signs of shelter or passing animals. As the afternoon deepened, the desert seemed to grow quieter, almost reverent. The sun, now high and relentless, cast sharp lines and shadows. A lone vulture wheeled far above, a sentinel of the endless sky. Hagar moved steadily, her senses finely tuned to the desert's rhythms. They came upon a dry riverbed, a faint scar in the landscape. Where water once had held its course, the sand was cracked, but the earth beneath showed signs of life. Tiny shoots pushed through the soil, green and brave against the dust. Life is patient, Hagar reminded Ishmael again. Even when we cannot see the rain, it comes. Even when we cannot feel the water, it waits. I want to be patient, Ishmael said softly. You already are, she assured him, smiling with quiet pride. Evening began to shade the desert in softer tones. The fierce heat relented, replaced by a steady calm. Hagar found another sheltered nook where they could rest before nightfall. A cluster of hardy shrubs offered scant shade and protection. Ishmael nestled close, his eyelids heavy with tiredness. Hagar rested too, her thoughts turning inward. The desert was a teacher in silence and endurance. It asked for resilience tempered by quiet, a steady heart that kept faith beyond sight or sound. She thought of Abraham, of promise and trust. The desert was their inheritance now, a living covenant. As shadows lengthened, a gentle wind rose, carrying a chill and the scent of cooling earth. Hagar held Ishmael close beneath their simple cloth, watching the first stars blink wakefully into the indigo dome above. Night wrapped around them like a soft cloak, thick with stillness. The air was cooler now, alive with the subtle chorus of crickets and faint desert whispers. A crescent moon rose slowly, its pale smile a tender promise. Hagar's voice broke the quiet, low and steady. These stars have watched over countless journeys. They have seen hope rise and fears fall away. Ishmael traced a finger in the sand, following the patterns the fingers of wind had left behind. Will they watch over us, always? As long as we walk beneath their light, she answered. We are never truly alone. They wrapped themselves further in their cloak and settled for the night. The desert, alive with invisible rhythms, breathed around them, a lullaby of endurance and grace. Hagar closed her eyes, feeling the ancient pulse of the earth beneath her. In that vastness, fear diminished. Love grew steady and clear. The night was deep, and in its quiet embrace, they found peace. Before sleep took her fully, Hagar whispered a prayer, not of asking, but of gratitude, for the desert's strength, for Ishmael's spirit, for the journey ahead, unknown, but carried with courage. The stars kept their vigil, patient and luminous. The desert held them in its silent, enduring heart, and the night passed gently, drawing them toward the dawn of another day. As dawn crept quietly across the horizon, the colors of the desert softened into gentle pastels. Cool breezes whispered through the cool morning air, carrying with them delicate scents of sage and dry earth. Hagar opened her eyes slowly, feeling the quiet pulse of the waking world all around her. Ishmael stirred beside her, his breath even and calm, still wrapped in the soft folds of their cloak. The desert was already beginning to hum with life again. Tiny lizards darted across sun-warmed stones, and a solitary bird sang from a distant acacia tree. It was as if the whole landscape was breathing a slow, peaceful stretch after the night's rest. Hagar rose carefully, brushing the sand from her clothing, her thoughts already turning toward the day ahead. She knew they must move on soon, but this morning still belonged to quiet reflection. With the child at her side, she stepped beyond their modest shelter, allowing the faint glow of sunlight to ripple across her face. Her heart was a mixture of cautious hope and deep vigilance. Every step through this challenging land was a lesson, every moment a test of faith. Yet, beneath it all, she carried a steady trust, a belief anchored not only in survival, but in a promise of unseen mercy, a kindness threading through the vast emptiness. Ishmael's small hand found hers again, grounding her. His bright eyes held a mixture of curiosity and trust, the innocence only a child could carry so bravely into the unknown. "Today we walk slowly," Hagar said softly, her voice a balm for sharing strength. "The desert teaches patience, and we will listen." Together they began their journey anew. The sand beneath their feet was cool, touched with the lingering dew of night. Their path wound through dunes fading from gold to pale pink, shadows retreating with the ascending sun. Hagar pointed out the signs of life hidden in plain sight: a beetle's trail, the delicate pattern of bird tracks, the faintest hint of green where desert grasses pressed toward the light. These small gifts grounded them, whispers of promise amid the vast solitude. As the morning unfolded, a gentle breeze stirred, carrying the distant call of a camel caravan, a reminder of life beyond the horizon. Hagar breathed in deeply, the sound igniting a quiet hope that somewhere shelter awaited. "Ishmael," she said softly, "the desert is vast, but even in its vastness there is kindness, and we carry that with us, always." The boy nodded, nestling closer. Their steps moved as one. The sun rose higher, casting longer shadows, and they sought refuge beneath an acacia, whose branches seemed to welcome them. The tree's delicate leaves filtered the sunlight, offering a patch of cool beneath the spreading shade. Hagar lowered herself to the ground, reaching into the small bundle they carried. She pulled forth a handful of dates, leftovers from the traveler they had met the day before, and broke them into small pieces, sharing the sweetness with Ishmael. "We share because kindness grows," she whispered. "Even a little brings much." The simple nourishment and moment of rest stirred strength in their weary bodies. Hagar watched Ishmael eat, his small face lit with quiet delight. She reminded herself of the resilience nestled inside this child, his spirit, like the desert seedlings, pushing ever upward despite the odds. Gathering their small belongings, they resumed their steps, guided now by the rising sun and the gentle, steady rhythm of their hearts. Midday brought with it heat that wrapped the world in shimmering waves of light. The wind carried little relief, but Hagar kept moving, attuned to the landscape's subtle signs. Ahead, a cluster of rocks cast long shadows, promising a cool sanctuary and a place for water to collect in hidden crevices. They moved toward it, each step careful and deliberate, aware of the preciousness of such refuge in this terrain. As they reached the stones, Hagar spotted a small pool of water nestled between the shadows of boulders. The liquid sparkled briefly before the breeze whispered across its surface. Dropping gently to her knees, she cupped the water and lifted it to Ishmael's lips. He drank eagerly, eyes wide at the cool sweetness. Hagar followed, savoring the fresh relief and the moment's quiet blessing. They lingered there quietly, shadows cooling their skin, the desert's heat softened by the sturdy embrace of stone. "You see, Ishmael," Hagar said, "the desert shelters those who look and listen carefully." He nodded, as if absorbing the lesson, his gaze traveling across the shifting sands, stretching toward the horizon. The afternoon waned, and the world cooled gradually. Hagar led their steps toward a ridge where the last light could be caught, a place she hoped might offer a glimpse of something beyond the unending dunes. From the summit, the vast arena of the desert lay bare. It was both beautiful and daunting, a tapestry woven with shades of ochre and rose, dotted with stubborn patches of green. Below they spotted tracks, faint but unmistakable, signs of a tribe's passage or perhaps wandering herds. Hagar felt her spirit lift. Life traces life, she reminded herself. They were part of this endless story, their footsteps joining those who had come before and those yet to come. With renewed determination they descended from the ridge, eyes peeled for shelter, signs of water, friends or strangers, any beacon of kindness. Even as stars began to prickle the darkening sky, the desert held its breath. Night brought with it cool shadows, the vast silence wrapping tightly around mother and child. Hagar found a place between two low rocks, sheltered from the sharp edges of the night wind. She gathered Ishmael close, their breaths mingling in the cold darkness. The crescent moon hung low, a sliver of light in the endless sky, reminding Hagar of the promise that had carried them so far. She whispered to Ishmael, "Rest now, my son. Tomorrow is another day where strength and hope will guide our steps." With the gentle rhythm of his breathing, she felt the slow pulse of peace return. The desert, relentless and vast, was also a place of quiet grace. Wrapped in the soft blanket of the night, under the watchful eyes of the stars, Hagar and Ishmael closed their eyes, held fast by the enduring embrace of the land and the unspoken promise of what lay ahead. The journey was long, the road uncertain, but they were not alone. As dawn once again promised a new beginning, the desert whispered softly, teaching, waiting, welcoming, and with each sunrise a fragile but fierce hope flickered anew. Before sleep could fully claim them, a gentle breeze stirred the desert air. It whispered softly, as if carrying unseen messages from distant places. Hagar closed her eyes for a moment, letting the coolness brush against her face, calming the warmth that had lingered since noon. Ishmael's breathing steadied beside her, quieter now, resting within the fold of her worn cloak. In the tranquil silence, Hagar's thoughts drifted back to the beginning of their journey. She remembered the uncertain steps taken long ago, the sharp edges of fear softened only by her faith. The desert had been daunting then, but it had also taught her many lessons, of perseverance, of attention to the smallest sign, and of hidden nourishment where none seemed to exist. Morning light crept slowly over the horizon, tinting the sky with pale gold and softening the outlines of distant dunes. Hagar gathered her belongings with gentle care, each movement deliberate. She wrapped Ishmael snugly against her chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Their footsteps left shallow prints in the fine sand, a quiet trace of their passage into this ever-changing landscape. Their path wound through a narrow valley, shaded occasionally by clusters of acacia trees. Their leaves rustled faintly in the morning breeze. Hagar paused often, scanning for fresh water, edible roots, or signs of humans or animals. She pressed her palm against rough bark, reminding herself that life here, though scarce, adapted and thrived, if one looked closely enough. Ishmael's eyes sparkled when he spotted a lizard darting between stones. He reached out a small hand, but Hagar gently took it, guiding his gaze upwards to the canopy where birds dipped and soared. She told him stories of the sky, of the protective stars that watched over wanderers like them. The desert was not empty, she said. It was full of quiet wonders waiting to be found. As the sun climbed higher, they arrived at a shallow ravine where a delicate trickle of water emerged, clear and cool against the warm stones. Hagar knelt, cupping her hands to gather the life-giving liquid. She guided Ishmael to drink carefully, feeling a fresh hope bloom in her chest. This small spring was a gift, a reminder that even in the harshest places, kindness could be found. They rested beside the water, letting the coolness seep into their tired limbs. Hagar shared with Ishmael the importance of gratitude, teaching him to thank the earth for its offerings. Together, they collected a few wild berries to eat, the sweetness a brief blessing on their tongues. The journey resumed, slow yet steady. Time seemed to stretch, measured by the changing angle of the sun and the rhythm of their footsteps. Hagar hummed ancient tunes, melodies woven with stories of endurance and divine care. Ishmael's tiredness ebbed and flowed, but his spirit remained unbroken, buoyed by the soft cadence of his mother's voice. By afternoon, the terrain grew rocky, and the shadows lengthened around them. Hagar spotted a small cave entrance, partially hidden by scrub. It offered shelter from the blazing sun and promised a safe place to rest through the heat of midday. Inside, the cool air enveloped them, wrapping them in quiet relief. Lighting a small fire of dry twigs, Hagar prepared a simple meal. The faint crackle of flames melded with the lull of their surroundings. She transformed the cave into a sanctuary, arranging stones and soft moss to cushion their resting place. Ishmael nestled close, soothed by the warmth and the steady presence of his mother beside him. As the day faded toward evening, Hagar climbed from the cave's mouth to watch the sunset. The sky blazed with colors of deep orange and pink, then softened to purple, and then to navy. She felt the vastness of the desert embrace her, a profound stillness, a reminder that their path was part of a larger, unfolding story. Returning to Ishmael, she found strength even in weariness. They shared whispered prayers, hopes for protection, and dreams of reunion. The stars began their quiet dance across the heavens, their silver light a gentle invitation to trust and to rest. Night deepened, cool and serene, wrapping the pair in its quiet promise. Hagar held Ishmael close, their breaths mingling in the calm. Their journey had been long, and the road ahead remained uncertain. Yet here, beneath the endless sky, they carried a resilient flame, a hope that would not be extinguished. With every dawn they would rise again, guided by faith and the gentle grace of the desert's embrace. And in this place of stillness, life whispered softly, a reminder that even in hardship, love endures, and new beginnings are always near. The stars faded gently, surrendering their quiet watch to the soft blush of dawn. Hagar rose first, careful not to wake Ishmael, whose small chest rose and fell in the steady rhythm of peaceful sleep. The coldness of the morning air brushed her skin as she stepped outside the shelter of the cave, the world still hushed and waiting. The desert held its breath, vast and endless, the horizon melting into gentle shades of soft amber and pale rose. She looked toward the east. Another day lay before them, uncertain, demanding, yet filled with the promise of new mercies. Her heart stirred with both heavy sorrow and quiet hope. Hagar wrapped a loose shawl around her shoulders, gathering strength from the fragile brightness of the morning. Ishmael stirred at last, blinking sleep from his eyes. His small voice called to her, a light in the shadows of the dawn. "Mother," he murmured, "what will we find today beyond the hills?" Hagar smiled softly, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. "Something beautiful, my son. Places and people who belong to the stories yet to be told." Together they washed their faces with cool, fresh water from the small spring nearby. The gentle splash was a balm on weary skin. Hagar's fingers lingered on the smooth stones, marveling quietly at how, even in the harshest places, life found a way. Their footsteps once again stirred the quiet earth as they resumed their journey. The desert sun climbed slowly, casting long, slender shadows behind the acacia trees that dotted their path. Each leaf and thorn seemed to whisper the language of endurance, a reminder that even through hardship, beauty persisted. They traveled with careful eyes and open hearts. Hagar taught Ishmael to watch for the subtle signs hidden in the landscape, the soft tracks of desert rabbits, the faint glisten of morning dew on hardy shrubs, the distant silhouettes of mountain goats grazing on rocky ledges. Ishmael's curiosity grew with every step. He asked questions that shimmered like light on sand. "Mother, why does the desert look so empty when we know it is full of life?" Hagar's voice was gentle, steady, shaping quiet truths. "Because much of life here is patient and unseen. It moves in ways we must learn to respect. The desert teaches us to be still, to listen, to wait." They paused by a cluster of wild thyme, its scent rich and soothing in the dry air. Hagar gathered a handful, crushing the leaves between her fingers, releasing warmth that melted into the morning breeze. They ate sparingly, the last of the berries Hagar had found the day before, softened and sweet beneath the tongue. Ishmael's small hands held each berry like a treasure, savoring the gift, learning gratitude anew. At midday the heat grew intense, pressing down like an unseen weight. They sought refuge beneath the sparse shade of a twisted tamarisk tree. Hagar laid Ishmael gently upon a bed of woven grasses and whispered ancient words of protection, prayers she had learned from a faraway place, carried in her heart like a hidden flame. Her voice was a soft murmur, blending with the rhythmic sighing of the desert winds. Ishmael's breathing slowed, his eyelids heavy once again. Hagar watched the play of sunlight on the trembling leaves, thinking of the many stories she had carried within her, stories of exile and belonging, of sorrow and hope intertwined. Her own journey, once full of fear and uncertainty, was now marked by quiet resilience. In the silence she felt the presence of something greater, a steady current beneath the shifting sands, a promise that no one, not even she and Ishmael, would ever truly be alone. As afternoon turned toward evening, The sky painted itself in shades of deep apricot and soft lavender. They moved again, slower now, their shadows stretching long and thin across the rocky earth. The path led them to a rise where the land opened wide, revealing a distant cluster of fig trees beside a small hidden spring. The promise of water, shade, and sustenance sparked warmth in Hagar's chest. She quickened her steps, holding Ishmael close, wary yet filled with renewed strength. The spring gurgled softly, a delicate song that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the desert itself. Ishmael laughed with delight, splashing water with small hands, the sound light and pure. Hagar gathered fresh water into a small clay vessel. She shared bread from their meager provisions, breaking it slowly, deliberately, each crumb a lesson in faith and endurance. They rested beneath the generous canopy of fig leaves, their green glow a balm to thirsty eyes. Ishmael's head nestled against his mother's breast, soothed by the cool shade and the rhythmic murmur of the spring. Evening drew its cool breath over the land as stars reclaimed the sky. The desert, alive with subtle sounds, the rustle of night creatures, the call of distant owls, felt a little less vast, a little kinder. Hagar prepared a simple fire, its warmth a gentle bulwark against the creeping chill. She hummed a quiet song, one her mother had sung long ago, carrying the weight and wisdom of generations. The melody swirled around them like a cloak, steady and unbreakable. Her voice faltered momentarily, a fragile note of sadness and longing, before growing strong once more. Ishmael's small hands reached out to hold hers, their fingers entwined in silent promise. Under the shimmering blanket of night, they prayed together. Not just words, but a language of hearts, fragile and whole. Thanks for the day, courage for tomorrow, hope that flowed as endlessly as the starry sky above. Hagar's thoughts drifted to the future, to the unseen paths that lay before them. She clung to the knowledge that each step forward, however small, was a testament to love's quiet power. The desert, vast and wild, held its mysteries, but also its miracles. Soon, fatigue claimed them again. Wrapped in each other's arms, they rested, two souls bound by hardship and hope, drawing strength from the unspoken faith that carried them through the night. As sleep deepened, Hagar's final thoughts were gentle and sure. This journey was not the end, but the beginning. A new story was unfolding, one of endurance, of trust, of a promise that life, even in the emptiest places, always finds a way. And so the desert whispered around them, a lullaby for those who believe in dawn.